Hi guys, Montel here, and welcome to this edition of Free Thinking with Montel. Over the past quarter century, there has been a profound increase in change in the involvement of women with the criminal justice system. This is the result of more expansive law enforcement efforts, stiffer drug sentencing laws, post-conviction barriers to reentry that uniquely affect women. The female incarcerated population stands over 7 times higher now than it did in 1980. More than 60% of the women in state prisons have a child under the age of 18. And my guest today is the founder of Life After Release, Inc., a formerly incarcerated woman-led organization supporting system-involved people in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. She's organizing to build a post-conviction movement challenging the integrity of the convictions and the judicial system. She's a local community organizer with Black Lives Matter in D.C., a national trainer with Silicon Valley Debug, Participatory Defense, and a proud member of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. Yeah. Qiana Johnson, thank you so much for being a part of today's Free Thinking with Montel.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to bring some awareness today.
Absolutely, and I think awareness is sorely needed today, especially when it comes to the issues of incarceration, especially with females of color. And, and this is all over this country. Let's get started by, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up and what your career path was and how you got to where you are today?
So I was born in Washington, D.C. to an immigrant household. My mother was from Guyana. And I was born in Washington, D.C. Shortly after, we moved to a county called Prince George's County. Most folks know it as the most concentrated Black wealth in the country. And moved to Prince George's County, Maryland at about maybe 6 years old. And after that time, I stayed there and I still live here today. Graduated high school, had the normal life. After high school, I went to a community college. From there, I got a job working for the federal government, in which I did so for 11 and a half years until I was incarcerated in 2015. And I was released in 2017, and here I am today with my organization, like I said, to bring awareness about the issues that are affecting the highly rising of Black and brown women who are going into the system.
Well, I mean, this is something that you personally have firsthand knowledge of. Can you tell us a little about it? Would you share a little bit about, how you became incarcerated and what that experience was like?
Absolutely. It was the most horrific experience that I had to go through in my life. As I said, I had never been in any trouble before. It was my first time in any dealings with the criminal legal system. It was through a real estate transaction. And it was a real estate transaction, a fraudulent real estate transaction. And there were 2 other individuals involved in this transaction.
And you were working for the federal government at the time?
I was working for the federal government at the time and it was right around the time when they were doing the freeze, the federal government freeze, and folks were being laid off. And so I ventured into real estate. I wanted to learn about real estate and, try to go to school to get my real estate license. And it ended all wrong, ended wrong.
Was this something you knew you were doing, or was it something you didn't know? I mean, was it, did you know you were getting involved in a fraudulent transaction?
There was, no. There was a lot of back and forth. There was a very good friend of mine who was the real estate agent at the time. And, it was what I learned through the process. I'm now studying law. And what I learned through the process is that the government cares very little about what you know and what you don't know. And ignorance to the law is no exception for it. So it's very important that we teach our children early. I think we should actually be teaching them in school about law. I really enjoy mathematics, but I really wish that someone would have told me about conspiracy when I was going through school as well.
Gotcha. Did you have children at the time that you were arrested?
Absolutely. I'm the mother of a 21-year-old. He's 21 now, and a 17-year-old. He's football. He's hopefully a football star and doing everything he can in school. And at the time of my incarceration, they were 16 and 12. So 2.5 years of my life was spent apart from my children. They were actually split up. One was living in Texas and one was living in Maryland, just to get through that very difficult, hard time of my life and of their life.
Did they understand what was going on with their mom?
At the time, they did not understand too much what was going on, but I was very transparent with them through visits and through, talking to them, and, even through the work that I'm doing today to let them know, hey, be very careful of like who their driving age now, right? Very horrific for a Black mother to have Black children that drive in anywhere, and let them be careful who you let in the car, because if they are in the car and they have a gun or they have drugs, you can be held liable. You will be held liable for that. And so, just being very careful of your associations and who you surround yourself with.
And what was the experience like incarcerated yourself, but being in there? What was going on? You were a white collar crime,
Hmm.
and I'm sure you were placed in confinement with people who were violent criminals and other types, right?
Absolutely. So the unique situation in the state of Maryland is that we only have one prison in the state of Maryland for women. And so what that means, Montel, is that whether you steal a candy bar or you participate in the heinous act of harm you can, which is the taking someone's life, you go to the same place, right? That's not the same in most other jurisdictions. They have levels of prison, right? Maximum, medium, minimum. But the state of Maryland, we don't have that. So I was serving my time in a maximum security prison with women who have, with women who have done things such as, committed a harm of murder or taken someone's life. And so it was very horrific. I will say it wasn't as I anticipated it to be on TV. There was a lot of dramatic things that happened on TV that just didn't happen inside of that women's prison. But it was where I built a lot of solid foundations and relationships with people who were seeking understanding, people who were seeking love and compassion and care. And it was through that experience, very ironically, that I ended up with my purpose and passion in life. I wake up every day with a passion and a purpose to live. And it was through that experience, unfortunately, but
And through that experience, that your life after release was born.
yes, absolutely.
And you started to determine what you would need yourself personally, or was it more driven by people who you come across as a natural leader? So I'm sure that people gravitated towards you. Was it because people were asking you questions that you decided to provide this service, or were you trying to get more information for yourself?
Well, Life After Release, the vision for Life After Release actually started on the day of my sentencing on June 15th, 2015, when I had a prosecutor that did everything in his power, some things that he shouldn't have done, to make sure that me as a Black woman went to prison. And it was the day that, he recommended my sentence and said that I think his exact words was that I was a complete threat to my community and that I was a public safety risk. And that,
Wait, for a real estate transaction?
yes, and he said that if, that I could bankrupt the whole entire county. And for that reason, they had to put me away, and I needed to be put away and be put away for a very long time. And I was just looking at him, and it didn't match. It didn't seem like Law and Order to me at all. It didn't seem like any of the television shows that we watch where we see, violent, or people that commit these horrendous crimes go away for long periods of time. It was not that. It was a white prosecutor who had every intention of sending away a black woman, and with no restoration, no real restoration, no real acts of justice, or no making anybody whole. It was all about sending a Black woman to prison.
And wait, what were you sentenced to? How long were you sentenced?
I had an 8.5-year sentence.
Then you served 2.5 years of
and I
that?
served 2.5 years, and I had to fight like hell to get out. Just like as I explained to you, going through that actual my case, and people seeing me go through my case, and people asking me questions. I would tell them, all I did was write. The entire time I was in there, I wrote plans, I wrote visions. I was actually serving as the inmate liaison on the inmate liaison council. So I worked very closely with the warden to get the women hygiene products that didn't have those, that were indigent, to get them bras and undergarments and things of that nature because they didn't have them, and advocating for them on the inside and organizing on the inside. And so that just translated into life after release. And it was, an evolution that naturally occurred on the outside.
And what was the mission when you started a mission? You started Life After Release. What was the mission of Life After Release?
The mission at that time, I really thought that it was, reentry would save us. And, at the time I went in with college credits, right? I graduated with, that's not the story of most women that are in cages. And so, being able to see that we all, 80% of us were mothers, and we missed our children, and trying to parent behind bars. And so the vision then was just really something really small, just like a support group, right? To be able to have a support group, to be able to empower and to help the women who were incarcerated that had children that wanted to be able to still be a part of their lives. And so that was what it started out to be. It started out to be a very small support group of just being able to help women. And what I quickly realized was that it was so much more than that, right? It was about the mass incarceration and the targeting of Black women going into the system first and foremost. And so that is what we are focusing on now today. That is where we are. We went from a support group to an advocacy group today.
Were you providing legal services also?
No, I'm not a lawyer, although I am studying law. I have like one more class left before I get my legal studies degree. And I would provide help with motions, helping women to write letters that may not have had the access to, write letters to their lawyers, to their judges, reading over those letters for them, making sure that it was kind of like sound. But I'm not in any way an attorney, not yet anyway. But I did help with some of those legal needs.
And I mean, how did the other women seem to react to you?
We were a very loving, like I said, I met some of the most some of the most deep connections that I made still are here today. The women that are home, we're still connected. They were they taken to me, right? I did my whole 2.5 years without one single ticket or one fight. Was able to just, show compassion and show love, because that is exactly what the majority of the women in that institution needed. And I was able to help show some of that.
And now, you came away with some very, very, very deep opinions about what you have gone through. I mean, one of which is the fact that you gave some statistics about the difference between the disparity between African American women who are incarcerated and Caucasian women who are incarcerated. We'll just talk a little bit to that.
So, Black women, when we go into prison, unlike what I've noticed with the Caucasian women who go into prison, we go into prison for things related to things such as poverty, related to domestic violence, violence with our partners, things of that nature, is usually trying to feed our children. And we are over prosecuted, and we receive such long sentences. So what I noticed was there were a lot of white women that rotated through the prison doors, but they were really in and out really quickly. And the reasons why they were there were very different than the reasons why the Black women were there, right? They were there for things related to substance abuse, and things of that nature, whereas Black women were really inside for a lot of poverty crimes and things that related to our well-being, and being targeted and being victimized for actually being victims, is where we were. So I just wanted to kind of make mention, although there were more white women in that jail, there were more Black women with aggravated sentences that for long periods of time, for acts of theft, 8.5 years, whereas a white woman who would come in with the same act would get 6 months and be right out the door. So I don't know if that kind of makes sense to you, but yeah, it's really weird. But that's what was happening. That was the real deal.
Do you think in some ways like black women were being used to feed the system of the of keeping the numbers up in jails?
I do. I absolutely do. When I had the detective in my case tell me, I don't care what you knew and what you didn't know. You're a very smart black woman, but I'm gonna ensure that you spent a very, very long time in prison. That resonated with me, because it was personal for him, right? Just to say something like that to me as a black woman, I didn't have any understanding for it at the time, but as I started to do the work in retrospect and looking back at those things, it becomes very personal when a black woman is on trial, when a black woman is arrested. It becomes a very, very personal thing.
Insane. So now you got out for good behavior, right?
I got out through a lot of motions. It was through parole, yes, that I received, for having a impeccable stay with no infractions. So it was, through the parole system in Maryland is why I did get paroled out early.
Okay. And now what are you doing now? You're running your organization full time?
I am running my organization full time, and I am proud to announce and report that I have, hired, uh, women who have been directly impacted by the justice system as well. My legal empowerment director, is a formerly incarcerated woman from Virginia. And I have, another woman on my staff, my community outreach director. Her son was going through the system. So I pride myself on not putting out a job announcement. I want to hire from within the community. I want to be able to, empower and build up our community, and that's one way that we do that. That's one way that we are, very intentional on giving back here at Life After Release. Our organization took off faster than what I thought it would. I've only been home 3 years myself. And so for my organization to be in a position where we can actually hire and pay more than living wage, to be able to pay for, individuals to have health care, for Black women to have health care, for them to be able to take care of their children, take them to the dentist, right? To be able to do those things is all a part of what Life After Release mission is about.
Yeah. So tell me about some of the services and programs that your organization does provide.
So Life After Release has three. Well, we have four major pillars of work. We are building what is known as a post-conviction movement. A lot of the work that's being done across the country right now is being done through a pretrial lens. And what that means is that we're talking about ending cash bail. We're talking about sentence disparities. We're talking about all these things that happen before a person goes into the criminal legal system. But what about the 2.3 million Americans who have been either stuck in a cage or have been affected by our criminal legal system, right? If we are now realizing in 2021 that we have a problem with prosecutors, what about 1990? We had prosecutors then. So we want to build a movement around talking about post-conviction relief, talking about post-conviction methods to get folks back into court, for them to be able to right the wrongs that have happened to them, through the criminal legal system. It's been proven that we have an issue with our criminal legal system. It did not start 2 years ago. It started several years ago. I would want to say almost 400 years ago, right? So that's the main mission of our organization. And within that, we have something that we do called the legal empowerment, where we are actually going around and empowering our communities on legal empowerment, how to go in and how to advocate for yourself, right? How to go in and get yourself off of parole early if that's what you need to do, how to file motions to get your children back, of all the women who lose access to their children when they are incarcerated. And then we have the, court watch and judicial accountability. And that's a
Talk a
really
little bit about that. That seemed like I read some information you gave us about that. That's a pretty powerful tool that you're using, and explain why you believe this is so necessary. You're literally sending people into court when a person goes in for the first time before a judge to make sure that the judge sees somebody's watching you, right?
Absolutely. And what that does, it's so many, it's a here and now. And when we go into our courtrooms and we are telling the judges, hey, look, the public is here. We see you. We see what you're doing right now today. We're not going to wait 20 years from now to come back and hold you accountable, because you may not be in office and this person would have lost 20 years of their life. And so what we are doing is we're providing a presence in the courtroom by showing our community members and our formerly incarcerated population on what they should be looking for, what the judges should be doing in order to do their jobs properly. Because at the beginning of our mass incarceration, our judges and our prosecutors, they're not being held accountable. No one is in the courtroom. No one. Who do you tell on a judge? Who do you go and report a judge to, right?
So explain to me how this works. I mean, you find out somebody will reach out to your organization. You find out about, so and so, XYZ, so and so's cousin is going to be arraigned on Monday, and could you send somebody there? So you organize and get a group of people to sit in the galley or in the gallery, right? Then they just are there. They're not legal representatives of the individual. They're just there so that the judge knows that he's got eyes on them.
So that's called our court support program, where we go out for individuals. But our court watching program is a little different, Montel. What we do with the court watching is we are in there every single day, whether we know this person or not. Our presence, we organize community members, about 20 or 30 folks every day now that we're virtual, and they sit in that gallery every day, no matter who's the judge on that bench. We will have our community members in there. So our presence alone affects people who we don't even know. And so that court watching, we are there every single day. We watch every single court case, and we have done so since 2018. We have sat in that courtroom we haven't missed a day.
And I mean, you explained a story about a young man who was there. Literally, I don't remember what his crime was, but he was there by virtue of the fact that he was an addict and had some issues. And had you not been there, the judge would have probably given him 20 years. But instead, since your organization was there and in the room, he got 15 years.
Absolutely. This is a very rural and very racist part of Maryland called Worcester County, and real close to where Harriet Tubman lived. And so they have
I don't know if you know, I'm from Baltimore, so.
Oh, yeah. So okay, so yeah,
yeah.
Worcester County, close to Ocean City, and we fought really hard.
The former home of the Grand Dragon of the KKK, but go ahead.
Yes, so you know very well what Worcester County, and so we sat in the gallery, and it was so hard for that judge. I mean, first and foremost, Montel, we got the most racist judge removed off of his case. That was our first victory in that case. And then after we were able to get that judge removed off the case, the new judge that we got on the case was very particular on how they adjudicated that case, right? Because they knew somebody was watching, not just one somebody, but a lot of somebodies. We were about maybe 10 people deep in that courtroom.
Do you have lawyers in that group?
Or? No, it's all community members, And so we had teachers, we had formerly incarcerated folks, we had church members, we had folks who have been victims of said crimes, and everybody stood up and said, hey, look, we are his community. We want him home. What's different now than the past of him coming before you in this courtroom is that we as a community are vowing to keep him safe. And so, yeah, he was facing 28, 29 years, and we had an attorney reach out to us because we were a little down that he got 15 years. And the attorney said, you all should really be happy because I've never seen anybody walk out of that courtroom with anything less than what they were facing. And you all did a great job.
Wow. Well, there's so many aspects of your organization and what your organization does. What's the single most important component of your work?
So I think the single most important component of the work is that, Montel, we bail out women. We bail women out of incarceration. And I'm trying to keep myself together on this because I did on Mother's Day. And I spent 2 Mother's Days away from my sons. And the most powerful aspect of the work is that we go in and we snatch our mothers out of those cages because they can't afford to pay for a bond. And that is so powerful to me because a lot of the women, about 98% of the women that we've snatched out of those cages, their cases have been dropped. And so I want folks to think about that, because I think most folks automatically assume that if a person is charged, that they're automatically the worst person on the earth. And that's not true. A lot of the cases that we work with, their cases are subsequently dropped for lack of evidence.
And in
And
a lot of those cases, they're not even guilty of the crime they've been accused of.
absolutely.
You talk a lot about the fact that we plea bargain, what, close to 90% of our cases, and sometimes people will take a plea just so they can get out earlier, right?
So they can get out and get back to their families, so they don't lose their jobs, so they don't lose their cars, their homes, up their roofs over their head. If and they have to make that decision based on the level of poverty that they come from. And so a lot of that is systematic. And so when we go in and bail women out, I think that's the most rewarding piece of work that I do every single year. And I keep relationships with these women. One of the women that we bailed out in 2019 is my executive assistant. And I say that so proudly because she was facing 25 years and her case was dropped, and now she makes over $40,000 a year working for life after release. And so that is the most rewarding thing for me.
And you help some of these formerly incarcerated people get homes and have access to other things?
Absolutely. We help them with transitional housing. We help them with transportation. We help them with childcare. We help them find jobs. It may not be that a woman needs to come home and work right away, right? She may need to get mental health services to deal with PTSD and other things. She may not be capable of working. She may need to be disability, or she may need to go back to school. It may not look like going to work at McDonald's for everybody, right? That's not quality. That's not ensuring that somebody has a good quality of life. What we are about is making sure that people that come and work with us, the people that we are helping, are on a path to self-determination so that they can have a quality of life that is equal to me, that is equal to you, that they can live life instead of just existing.
If somebody wanted to find out more information real quick, I'll make sure as we continue to talk, but go ahead and give out your website so people know where to reach out to.
Absolutely. Life After Release, www.lifeafterrelease.org. You can reach out to us. You can find us on all social media platforms at #LifeAfterRelease, all one word. And you can, reach out to us in any way. We're always welcome,
And also, if you want to volunteer.
Absolutely. We need volunteers, but do we need anything else? I'm always at the chance of being able to spread some awareness so that we have training programs, we have orientations, we need court watchers. Fiona Apple is one of our Vivid court watchers now. She does it remotely. So you can do it remotely. We have court watchers from Michigan that come in and sit in our galleries. And, we have a saying, don't believe us, come watch,
Can you explain what the political education program is?
The political education program is for people to understand where we came from and how we got here today. That it was not just by happenstance that Black people are the most incarcerated people on the planet. It is about understanding that our current president, Mr. President Biden, is not our president hero. He is actually a target because he had hands in creating the 1994 crime bills that have
Yeah. A lot of people don't understand that at all. A lot of people don't understand the fact what you just said, that again, this country has the most number of incarcerated people of any country in the planet, and the majority of those incarcerated in this country are Black. So when you take a look at it, you understand that incarceration in America really was called slavery. It's just a new re-enslavement tool, a way to get rid of us out of the society. We know that for a fact, though people don't want to admit that. Well, go ahead.
Absolutely. And so, we are understanding that political education looks like holding Biden accountable, not just for Biden today, but Biden from 1994. The Biden that there are some people that are still incarcerated from the time he created those crime bills that he needs to have atonement for and accountability to.
It's the same thing for our vice president also, who was the attorney general in California, where they were incarcerating more people for nonviolent marijuana crime than anyone else in the entire country. in a state where cannabis is legal.
Absolutely. And so that is what political education looks like. And we have a duty, Montel, we have a duty to our people to make sure that we are providing those spaces for them to be able to learn and unlearn some of the systematic history and things that we are a part of and how we contribute to that, not even knowing sometimes, right? So you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you came from, and that is the basis of our political education.
And do you do that online? How do you do that? You do that in forums? Do you have people come to meet with you guys? How do you do that?
We do that right now through virtually, and we find out that a lot of our people, we provide laptops because our world has gone virtual, not understanding that there's a whole population of people who are don't even have the access. So we provide our technology to individuals, laptops and things like that, so that we can teach them online. Our Justice and Liberation Institute, for folks that are watching that may know someone who's formerly incarcerated, it starts up July 31st and it goes all the way to September 18th. We will be selecting around 11 women who have gone through the criminal legal system. It was an 8-week course where we're going to be providing them with stipends to be able to come and learn with us.
Well, that's great. And then does that people have to apply? Where do they go to apply?
You can go to our website. On our website, there's a link to our application process there.
Gotcha. I mean, now, if you had to stop and think, what are some of the biggest challenges facing women who are transitioning out of the incarceration system?
The biggest challenge that we have is, and I tell folks this all the time, when men are entering into the criminal legal, it was designed for Black men, right? And so now that women are going in and coming out, when men go in, mostly every mama he knows stands up for him. His mama, his baby mama, his grandmama, all the mamas. But when a Black woman goes into incarceration, she's shunned, she's separated, she's isolated, she's forgotten about. And so that doesn't go away when she's released. Those same things that she dealt with on the inside follows her on the outside. And so just getting back into a place of trusting her environment, trusting society that they're going to take care, that they're going to show her love and that they're going to be there for her, is one of the most largest obstacles that women face when they come out. No one is there. When a guy comes out, his girlfriend or his, someone that loves him is there waiting for him. When a woman comes out, she's got, maybe her children are there, maybe they've been taken away. And she has to immediately go back into a mode that she probably wasn't prepared to be in the first place. And so we want to be able to provide, assistance and awareness of that.
And your organization now, you're primarily working with women, but you do work with men also, correct?
Yes, correct. We center women. We don't just work with women, but we center women, which means that all of our programming, our bailouts and things are around women. But if there is a man that needs help navigating the system through our participatory defense program or trying to get him out, we will help him, but we will center a Black woman first and foremost.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some of the current or past cases that you worked on that highlight really how well your organization has been helping.
Yes, our very first case is a case of a Black man who was pulled over in a very marginalized and over-policed area of Prince George's County, Maryland. It's like the District Heights area. He was pulled over for a broken taillight, and he was subsequently beaten by the police. And once the police realized that they had done something wrong, in order to cover up their bad actions, they charged him with attempted murder on a police officer. And that was our very first case. And it took us a whole 2 years to fight this case tooth and nail. And he walked away. They try to offer him a plea deal. And I'm going to tell you something that's going to make you go, Montel. He was charged with attempted murder on a police officer, but after our advocating and when we got into the case, the prosecutor came back and said, hey, look, I'll give you a deal. Why don't you just plead guilty to disorderly conduct? We were like, wait a minute. So you wanted to first charge him with murder, and now you're saying, oh, all you did was you were just a little disorderly? No, this man is innocent, and you all abused him and abused your authority, and we are not taking no for an answer. We're going to trial. We had a mistrial in that case, and that young man walked away from a 38-year possible exposure sentence, and being incarcerated, and he's a free man today.
He was incarcerated for 2 years leading up to that. I mean, 2 years.
We were able to get him out on bail.
You got him out on bail. Oh, that's great.
We were able to get him out on bail. So yeah, so he did not. So he fought his case on the outside, which also led to the fact that he was able to prove himself guilty because he wasn't pressured by being in a cage to, a plea deal.
And I mean, how often do you see cases like that where you know for a fact that, whether it be male or female, where, the individual is just being charged to get another Black person off the street?
More often than not, Montel. I will make mention of our case that we have, and it's so near and dear to my heart because this woman is my director of court watching and judicial accountability. Her name is Carmen, and Carmen is innocent of her what she was charged with, and she went and did federal time. Judge Joe Brown actually interviewed her a couple of weeks ago, and he's actually working on her case, and she's my director, and she was the opposite. She actually had to do 3 years in a prison camp. And she's still out today fighting her case, and her name is Qiana Johnson. There's no relation, we're not related, but she is my director, and we're still fighting her case as she is fighting for her life, and she's also working for us to make systematic change. And so hopefully you can put some information out there about Carmen's story. But this is an ongoing thing. She may have already served her time, but she's still fighting for her innocence.
Explain a little bit about what this is all about. What was she charged with? What happened? Can you talk about it?
Yes, absolutely. Carmen was charged with, I don't know the absolute details. I know she was charged with, similar to me, real estate. She's a Black woman. She was she was charged with the real estate, and so it was a financial crime. I don't know the actual, I don't want to get too deep into it, but it was had to do with real estate and financial, bearings on her case. And she fought then, she lost. She had to do time, but she's out now. She's not only fighting for herself, but she's fighting so that another woman or another person does not have to go through what she went through. And more often than not, people take plea deals because it's so scary, and it's a high chance that you're going to get thrown in jail whether you did it or not. People have this make-believe thing of innocence and guilt, and it has a lot to do with what you can prove in court and what you can't. It has nothing to really do with right and wrong, or morals or anything like that. It has to do with what a prosecutor can prove.
And that's one of the major problems you've identified in the court system. What are some of the other ones that you've identified?
Some of the other problems that we have identified outside of the huge prosecutorial and judicial misconduct that we have identified is that we have identified the overload of public defenders. They're caseloaded. They just have a huge caseload. And so that fundamental imbalance of, a state prosecutor and a state appointed defense attorney with a lot of cases is just fundamentally wrong. And so we are also providing like educational opportunities for attorneys, and to empower public defenders to be able to better do their jobs and to help advocate on their behalves as well, because they're just overworked and they don't have the capacity to really give a zealous representation for their clients.
And what are you doing to enact some of the changes in the system?
Some of those changes, within the system is to be able to provide, the public defenders with opportunities to provide training to folks, opportunities to, for us as community members to empower the loved ones that are going through the legal system on how to go over their discovery. Right? You will be surprised at how many people are serving time and never saw their discovery. They don't even know what it is. And so we are taking on that responsibility or that role and that duty in the community to largely empower folks. And we're also moving into a way to start to empower Black folks to go to jury duty. and that's a simple thing, but it's really profound because a lot of our people don't want to go to jury duty, and we're not sitting in a jury of our peers. We're sitting in jury of white people, right? And we're not sitting. And so we want to empower Black people. If you get that jury duty, you get that jury notice, you need to be in those jury boxes. It's important. It's just as important as voting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I have a brother-in-law who is a public defender, and he's told me some of the nightmares of cases that he's worked on where he knows that, the prosecutors don't even recognize or don't even know the law that they're trying to enforce against their clients. And he's gotten several clients off by just walking in and going, "Excuse me," and whether he's guilty or he's not guilty, that's not the law. And
Yep.
and oftentimes, I think what we do is we throw ourselves on the mercy of the court by recognizing that the court is merciless.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the disconnect there is that we have law enforcement or police officers who charge people, right? They don't go to law school. And then they hand over their charging documents to prosecutors who now try to make the glove fit to someone who may not, the police officer just saw a Black guy walking down the street and this store was robbed last night, and he picks him up and say, "Hey, look, you're a Black guy, you must have robbed that store," and he passes it off to a prosecutor. That's a fundamental problem, right? That's fundamental.
What's been the pushback that you've gotten from local, and state governments? Or are they working with you? Or are they working against you?
Oh no. I work very they work they work they try to ignore me in hopes
Mhm.
that I go away. I don't think that they either work for or against. They just try to ignore me and they try to shoo me away like a fly. Our prosecutor, State's Attorney Aisha Brave Boy, is a newly elected progressive prosecutor. Is what this wave of, if there could ever be a thing, right, of a progressive prosecutor, who are, stepping up and becoming the heroes, which is getting on my nerves because, like you said, your brother-in-law is a public defender. They are the real heroes in this. It is not the prosecutors who are siding with the police and trying to lock people up and making stuff up as they go along. It is the public defenders. And so my public defenders love me. They work with me. But my prosecutors, they kind of wish I would go away. The judges, they want to do away with me. But I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to continue to tell my story, and I'm going to continue to provide a microphone so others can tell theirs.
Is it getting worse or is it getting any better?
It's getting better. And when you say that, I'm gonna take that back. When you say getting worse or getting better, give me some context. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, when you look at, and I struggle with, thoughts myself of like, when you look at the news every single day, you recognize how deeply flawed we are as a nation. We recognize how much race does play a part in every aspect of our criminal justice system. And then there's a little glimmer of hope here and there when you see protesters outside of courthouses that are multi-ethnic and groups that seem to 10 years ago may not have stood together with a group like yours to help. Now all of a sudden they're standing together. But are there numbers so few that it really isn't making as big a difference as I think it is? So what I say is it getting better. I mean, are you getting support, broader support from the community at large? And is that support enough to, we got those two little containers of justice, the when you see the supposed blind, a blindfolded person holding the scales
That's
of
beauty.
justice. Is the scale starting to shift a little bit, or is the scale still disproportionately against us?
We got a long way to go, but I will say that power concedes to nothing without a demand. And when I say that to say that when Black people rise up and when marginalized people rise up and we start to organize and we start to mobilize, you have to pay attention to us. Derek Chauvin is not incarcerated now because the system decided that they were going to do the right thing. Let's be very clear. It was because the country stood up for freedom.
World
The
stuff.
world stood up in a united front for 365 days, similar to when Rosa Parks sat in the front of that bus and they organized and they boycotted and they did things. That is where the real change comes from, because you are not allowed to ignore me any longer. I'm going to mount up and I'm going to organize and get a nation of people behind me. And you can no longer, we have a saying in our court watching program that injustice happens in empty courtrooms. If there's nobody in there to hold that judge accountable, he gets to run wild and do whatever he wants. But the nation stood up, the nation demanded, and the nation got closer to justice. I don't think that was necessarily justice, because right after that, we had the situation where the young 15-year-old was shot and killed in a couple of states over, right? So that is not going to get us there, but we have to continue. And for my message to Black people and marginalized people as a whole, don't go to sleep. Don't ever take your thumb off of that button. You continue to press that button. You continue to demand change. Don't be like me and only get in and work your government job and not worry about the criminal legal system until they slam you in a cage, right? Get involved so that your children and your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren don't have to fight this fight all over again in the next 15 years.
Which I think we are looking down a barrel saying that that's exactly what's going to happen. The same fight's going to get fought again 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now. That's what I'm also asking for when it comes to the question of whether or not you think the scales are starting to adjust. I mean, do you think we're going to be going through this again in 15 years? Is this what we have in our future?
We have to, I hope not. I hope not. I'm 40 years old now. My son is 21. I'm probably getting ready to go into the, having grandchildren and stuff pretty soon. And so, I'm just hoping that I can teach and leave a legacy so strong that we continue to do the work. And so we just have to continue. And thanks to you for even having me on to be able to tell this and to be able to leave a footprint of someone to be able to follow, or for someone to be able to say, hey, if she did that, then I can, do that, or I can do this, or I can, make a change. And so it is shows like this, it is opportunities like this that we are able to speak up and tell our stories, because they would much rather us be silent and not heard, so that our children and our grandchildren won't have a blueprint to follow.
Is your organization expanding to other states?
We are. Right now we're DC, Maryland, and Virginia. My hopes is that I'm creating a decarceration model here, and to be able to put this decarceration model in every jurisdiction that has a courtroom, to be able to put this model all throughout the country. And so that is, I want people to replicate what I do. I want people to do what I do, because it's then that we will break those barriers.
Well, tell us a little bit about the 100 Women in 100 Days Clemency campaign.
Yeah, so my mentor, Andrea James, is the founder of and executive director of the National Council of Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. She too is also a formerly incarcerated woman. She's also a former attorney. She's running this campaign across the country, as we talked about with Biden. I think we're past his 100 days now. He failed, but we were asking him to release 100 women that have been under his regime, that were affected by his 1994 crime bill, to release these women who've been locked up for 20 plus years for a drug conspiracy charge where no one even lost their life, right? And so we were asking for that. And so I'm a proud member, my organization is a proud member of the National Council, where we are going to be moving this campaign to the state of Maryland, where we will be asking our governor, hopefully it's Wes Moore. I heard he entered into the race yesterday. We'll be asking our governor to go in and do pardons so that we can decarcerate our women's prison. We only have one. We're almost there. We can decarcerate that prison and bring it down.
Absolutely. How again can people help and get involved and make a difference? I mean, give out your website one more time.
My website is www.lifeafterrelease.org. Where you can go in and find all the work that we're doing, sign up for our notifications, our newsletters. You can sign up for Court Watch there. And if you're interested in the 100 Women in 100 Days campaign, you can go to the National Council of Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls website.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
I just want to add that we have to keep going. We are the change that we want to see. Nobody's going to come and save us. Our president is not going to save us. Our county officials are not going to save us. It is the power of community and the power of love that will set us free. And so we have to get to a point where we are doing that.
Qiana Johnson, I can't thank you enough for being a part of Free Thinking with Montel. We need people like you out there in the community trying to make people understand the truth behind our justice system. We hear all this stuff about justice reform, but people, I don't think, really focus in and understand what that means. I know one of the stats that you gave out that I was very impressed with was the stats about the fact that the number of cases that are plea bargained versus those that go to trial. Why don't you give those numbers out again?
90% of individuals who are faced with a criminal charge will plead guilty. And it has nothing to do with innocence or guilt. It has everything to do with their access to an attorney. It has everything to do with their being able to navigate the criminal legal system. 90% of those people who are facing criminal charges, and what that means is that could be you, it could be your grandchildren, it could be your great-grandchildren, and if they are faced with a crime, more than likely they're going to plea out because they can't afford not to.
Absolutely insane. One more time, give out your website.
www.lifeafterrelease.org, and we look forward to coming in and organizing and being with us, volunteering with us.
Thank you again, Qiana, so much for being here, and thank you for tuning in to this edition of Free Thinking with Montel.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining me on Free Thinking with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear feedback, so please send us your comments.